Yesha b'gemar shetnenu kasoif v'chilut d'vei Rabbi Yehuda, etc., bracket, so it's a Shachmatari, the give and take over there, Rabbi Eliezer, Rabbi Yeshua, L'sof, Shasik, Rabbi Eliezer, even though it's a machlokas, and Rabbi Eliezer begs to differ, after Rabbi Yeshua brings his conclusion that it's not dependent upon our tshuva ma'asim tovim, Rabbi Eliezer doesn't answer back. He has no answer back in the end. Ki'ilu, he's molded, as if he agrees to Rabbi Yeshua in the end, that even though it's true that normally we think otherwise, but the reality is that the Yemos Mashiach is not dependent upon our schuyot or chavot. Kemosh Marasham v'Rei Hod Rabbi Yeshua Shagula Sida Elu Tuli b'Tshuva Ma'asim Tovim Klal. So he agrees. V'chein Kesef Ramban. Ramban also writes by Parashas Azinu. Shavtachas Geula Sidas Ein Ba Tanoi b'Tshuva v'Avoida Ela Shehi Muftach Lavo Al Kopanim Ayin Shem. Ramban himself writes. He agrees as well that the final redemption is not dependent upon tshuva ma'asim tovim to come at all. To come early, it obviously is, but to come at some point in time, it's muftach, it's promise, it's part of Bris Avos, it's part of history. We can't do anything to cancel it out. Baruch Hashem, right? Umash nimsa bekama agada shetuli b'tshuva. Okay, we find in different midrashim that it mentions that it is tului b'tshuva, that does depend upon our tshuva. Nehu al pi masha amru shambas and hadron kofiyad aleph amna aleph ki echad meir mezakeh kol ha'ir kula v'shnayim mishpacha mezakim kol mishpacha kula. So what is it talking about? So elsewhere the Gemara says on Kufiyad Aleph Amid Aleph that one person, the tshuva, one person in the entire household can mezakeh the whole household. Two people in an entire community can be mezakeh the entire community for geula. That's what it's talking about. But the rest of the people, not necessarily. V'cheinu muvar b'medrash ne'elam bazar chadash Parashas Noach Samach l'Soifoi Shamru Sham Rabbi Elazar but Beferish. There Rabbi Elazar says Beferish. Specifically, he says Ki Gam Shekol Tuli B'Shuva Ach I Yachisrun B'Shuva Afilu Chada Kenishta B'Schusa V'Iskanesh Kol Glusa. It says the same thing. Ayin Sham Ube'emes Harei Yeshnam Kama Tzadiki B'Chol Dor V'Dor Al Kopanim. But he says, in truth, thank God, Baruch Hashem, there's always going to be tzaddikim in every generation that would mezakeh the klal in the end. Lama v'tzaddikim, the makabli apei shchina, the Gemara says in Sukkah that there are 36 tzaddikim every generation, every door that are makabel the b'nei shchina every day. More sources, right? And he brings down that there are 36 in Eretz Yisrael and 36 in Chutz La'aretz. They're more concentrated in Eretz Yisrael. It's a smaller place. That 36 in Chutz La'aretz can be all around the world, collectively speaking. Mashma Sham Kihain Nistarim Kihain B'Madregas Leiv Ayin Sham. That he says that the Nistarim, we don't know who they are necessarily, because he says he calls them Madregas Leiv, the level of the heart itself, right? So he goes on to say. Meme tzadikim shebehem miskayim olam k'nizgol el perches v're'enu chas v'olam bekam tzadikim v'chol dor asher b'schusam yavo hagula l'chol Yisrael kulam afil k'shiyu rovam chayiv. So he says there's always going to be tzadikim, some people in the world who are righteous enough and whose merit the gula will come anyhow, even if the majority of the Jewish people are not zoicha, which is good news, which is very good news in the end, especially for our generation today. Right? V'chein mora kama pasukim Yechezkel mevav l'mazayin. Likewise, there's other pasukim in Yechezkel mevar sham kimat beferish, and almost it says explicitly shagula chuna ein tului b'tshuva ma'asim tovim klal v'hi betucha lavo al kol pani. It's going to come anyhow. And he says the same thing about Olam Haba as well. Right, of course, Olam Haba is similar to bris that Kodesh Baruch Hu made with Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. Elsewhere, he talks about how the fact that why do we have Gehenna in the first place? That everybody should go there. You cannot destroy a Jewish soul. He explains Karis, as the Arizal also explains, to us the body being cut off, but the neshama will always live and always exist, no matter how bad a person is. Even Yerobab ben Nevat, one of the worst kings the Jewish people ever experienced in history, will also come back at some point in time and being Gan Eden. As the Gemara points out elsewhere in Sanhedrin. that everybody goes to the world to come. The only question is going to be what you have to do to get there, where you have to go through to actually get there in the end. That's the difference, basically, in terms of whether a person goes or, they go. Everybody goes, right? It's a question of whether you go through Gehenna first. That's the bottom line. And just to cut to the chase, as they say, and that's what he explains. So that's the reason why the Torah that we have right now in our possession does not talk about Olam Haba, Yemos Mashiach Techis Mason, because ever since Moshe came down from the mountain carrying two sets of luchos, he came in two luchos itself. The first that he came down with, he came down with two sets. The first set he broke, right? He came down from Har Sinai, and he broke the first set of luchos. We saw the Egel Zav, the golden calf, being built and being worshipped in the camp below. That set of luchos was carved out by Kodesh Baruch Hu and written out by Kodesh Baruch Hu on a much higher level. We call Torah Tzilis. That's the Torah of Yemos Mashiach. The second set of luchos, Moshe himself carved out. Hashem wrote it, right? But it's a much, much, much lesser level of kedusha to be carved out by man, even Moshe Rabbeinu, than is to be carved out by Kodesh Baruch Hu, even though in each case it's the Dibur Hashem. Just like the Sefer Torah itself is also Dibur Hashem, but the kedusha is not the same kedusha as the first of the luchos that Moshe came down with. And that was a whole different level, gilui, of Torah. As Leshem points out, elsewhere, everything would have looked differently. It's a discussion to itself. We'll talk about Be'ez Hashem later on. Next week's Parashat Mishpatim. Moshe actually comes down with the luchos. It speaks about him being actually in Shemaim, that at the end of the Parsha. But had Moshe come down with the first of luchos, then that would have only spoken about Yemos Mashiach and Techis Meisim and Olam Haba, because Moshe is coming down with the first of luchos and not having the Egel Zahav would have ushered in the period of Yemos Mashiach. So therefore, the Torah would only be addressing Yemos Mashiach, where there's no Bechira, there's no free will anymore, and therefore there's no discussion about Mishpat and Din. The Torah will not have the levush of Din v'Mishpat like it has today. But the Jewish people did the chet, and as a result of that, Moshe Rabbeinu did break the luchos, was forced to go up with a second set of luchos and come down with them later on, and that set of luchos addressed the level of the Jewish people after the chet. And we're no longer living in Yemos Mashiach, and quite far from it, in fact, as a result of that, and therefore the Torah is addressing us on that level. Same Torah, same mitzvahs, but a much lower level, on a level of Din v'Mishpat, which is the world in which we live in right now. And that's why the Torah itself does not mention these very important inyanim, because it's not shaykh to talk about them, because the Torah is moira. It's coming to tell us how to live today in the world in which we live, to get to this first of luchos once again, as the Meforshim pointed out, which is why they were, even though they were destroyed, they were put into the Aron HaKodesh as well, and they had to tell us that's where we're working towards. And when Mashiach comes, the Torah once again will be revealed on that level of Torah Tzilis, Torah's Mashiach, the level of Torah of the Gilui of Yemos Mashiach and Olam Haba, and then it will become clear to everybody, because that will be the reality of that time.